Argentina 28, Lions 24. The worst possible start to things under Andy Farrell for the British and Irish Lions, who could not cope with what was a really impressive performance from Argentina. And I think the best way of describing it is a team that wanted it more triumphed on the night. And it was always going to be a difficult game for the Lions, given the fact that obviously it's their first time together, playing against a seasoned international side as good as Argentina. But Argentina also haven't played a game this year, but they turned up, they wanted more, they worked so hard, and what a performance it was for Felipe Contepone's men to go and get the victory. This could very well be the last time the Lions lose this year, to be honest, because I think that this will probably be their toughest test of the year, ironically. As you know, a game that's kind of dubbed as a bit of a warm-up for the tour could very well be the hardest one of the tour. But what a game it was, and it ebbed and flowed, and we never really knew which way it was going. Right up towards the end, to the Lions having a late penalty to try and score a try, which would have won them the game. Just 4 points separating the two sides. So an absolute stunner of a game to have watched, and you could see what it meant to the Argentinians. They really, really left it all out there. They were desperate to win. Felipe Contepone on his feet throughout the game, desperately trying to will his team on to get a result, and get a result they have done. Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's have a look at how things happen. So early penalty from Argentina in the 4th minute. Thomas Albanos had another solid game. Cancelled out by Marcus Smith in the 9th minute. Early on, we saw Argentina playing with quite a high tempo. We expect that, though, with Argentina. They do. They play relentless rugby. They grind you down, not from a physicality point of view, but just from a keeping you going. You know, they just attack you from all different angles at all times. Their pace of play is always sensational. And they very much look more on it from that perspective. But the Lions had the physicality. They had the scrum. They had the set piece. And they were dominating that battle. And that was always going to look like the way they were going to find back into the game. So things all changed when Ignacio Mendy went over for the first try, 3 points to 8. All of a sudden, Argentina found that belief. Because one thing, Argentina often play well. And they often look positive. But they don't often capitalize. And they don't often manage to score, the points that, maybe the way they play should reflect. But getting that first try was a big moment. Now, unfortunately, it was cancelled by Bandiaki in the 80th minute, so it didn't last for that long, and Finn Smith added the extras to make it 19 points. Sorry, Finn Smith had the first penalty, not Marcus Smith. So 10 points to 8 for the Lions, and all of a sudden you're thinking, right, well, game back on, is this going to be the way they shift? But Argentina stayed in the game, and a 3-pointer from Thomas Albanos in the 26th minute gave them that slight edge. For me, the moment came with that phenomenal try just before halftime. So Albanos added a penalty and then added another penalty, 14 points to 10. But on the brink of half-time, we saw Thomas Albanos score a try and a bit of a counter-attack try, really. The Lions, Arsenal just wanted to get to half-time. They just wanted to go through the set piece, put the ball out, go back and have some oranges. The Lions turned it over. Duan van der Merwe brought it in. The ball was lost in contact. Argentina turned it over, and Thomas Albanos went over. And all of a sudden, the Lions were 21 points to 10 down at half-time, which did prove too much to come back from. An early setback for Argentina, and this is the thing, they had to really contend to get back into this game because the yellow card in the 46th minute led to a penalty try shortly after. Well, it was from the penalty try, and then Ty Burn went over in the 62nd minute, and all of a sudden the British and Irish Lions were ahead by 3 points with less than 17 minutes on the clock. But what a try from Cordero. Coast to coast from Argentina, their hands, the winning it back, the awareness. When Argentina play well, they are one of the most attractive teams to watch in World Rugby. Certainly one of the top 3 for me, best attacking international sides out there. And when they turn it on, tell you what, they can turn it on. And they did turn it on. And that try gave them the edge. And then it was defense. They struggled. They were conceding scrum penalties. They were conceding possession sometimes. But they just kept it going. And, you look at the way the momentum shifted. You can see how they had early momentum, then the Lions wrestled it back. But that second half spell, just before the half time, was a big one. And then they just managed to keep a bit of momentum. If we look at some of the other stats, though, ruck speed, for example, the Lions were trying to play a bit faster. Argentina were playing quickly despite not necessarily having quick ruck speed because they play on loose ball. They play on turnover ball. They play on 50-50s, and that's where they try to up the ante, really. If we look at sort of some of the attack profiles, the likes of that, you can just see how Argentina far more offloads, for example, more tackles missed, but also more tackles made, more dominant tackles. It was more the set piece, really, that the Lions kind of thrived. So if we take a look at the stats, more carries from the Lions, far more carries, in fact. If we look at the territory, most of the rugby being played inside the Argentina 2022. So it shows you Argentina defended well, which is not always a trademark of Argentinian size, to be perfectly honest. More possession than the Lions have, especially in the last 10 minutes. Look at the set piece. Lineouts, lineouts were a problem for both sides, to be honest. The scrum was much better from a Lions point of view. That doesn't necessarily show you that, but it was. The Lions had the better scrum, and Argentina was struggling big time. They were missing a Thomas Gauge. They were missing an Eduardo Bello, but they made it work. Even if you look at the attack, far more post-contact meters, far more carries, more than double the passes, same amount of line breaks. Every single stat that you'd like to dominate, the Lions did dominate. There weren't even that particularly bad discipline, to be honest, from a penalties point of view. But the Argentina just made their chances count. I think that's the only way of putting it. They, on turnover ball, they had some really good tries, and then they just stuck with it, and they just made it difficult. The Lions did look slightly disjointed, and they're always going to look slightly disjointed. They're playing this together for the first time. They haven't really been around. They haven't spent a lot of time together. This particular team's been together for just over a week, for example, maybe 2 weeks. A couple of players coming in this week. So there's going to be a certain amount of sort of disjointedness. On the other hand, this was not the best Argentinian side. They get better. There are big players that were missing, like a Matias Carreras, for example. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. And he was missing today, on the wing. And Thomas Gaujo and Eduardo Bello, I think those players, were big misses. But they were really, really good. And were full marks to them because they came out, they wanted more. They were desperate to get a victory. They played a pretty, I wouldn't say it was a carefree style of rugby, but they were willing to have a go. They didn't go into their shells. They didn't suddenly think, oh, hang on, this is a important Lions game. We can't make mistakes. They were willing to make those mistakes because they were willing to sometimes throw the ball around. They were sometimes willing to hold on to the ball versus, throwing that 50-50 offload. And at the end of the day, once they got that lead, they were going to protect it, and they were going to do everything they can to scramble defense, to protect it, to try and make sure they get the result, and got the result they did. So for the Lions, it's a setback. It could very well be the last game they lose this year, but it'll show them that they can't rest on their laurels. And I think this might be a good sort of kick in the backside to know that they need to be on it when they go to Australia. Australia aren't as good as Argentina. We know this. So as I said, this could potentially be the hardest game for them, and obviously not anywhere near the strongest Lions side. But it does bode a warning or give a warning to the Lions that they can't just think that they can put the best of four nations together and expect to just walk over opposition, because opposition are not going to be that easy. So for a team which did have a lot of debutants and a lot of newcomers, not from an international point of view, but from a Lions point of view, it's a good wake-up call. What do you think of the game? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.